I'm going to throw a couple of types of lids here, a couple variations on a right side up lid. And this is the kind of lid that you throw the knob. You throw it in place. You don't trim or add a knob on later. So I'm going to throw this off the hump. I'm going to get a larger piece of clay, secure it on here, get it either all the way centered or at least partly centered. And then I'm going to work with just a smaller section of the piece here. Now, some people say that it's best to throw the pot and then measure the pot and throw the lid. Some people prefer to throw the lid first and then make the pot to match. You know, either one is perfectly reasonable. Here I am throwing the lids first, so I'll have to measure them and then throw the pot to go with it. So I have sectioned off a part of this clay. This section here is the part off the knob that I'm going to work with. And it looks like I could center it a little bit better, so let me redo that. So I'm only working with this smaller section of clay. Here's my pretend bottom. I'm ignoring this clay right here. Now, for a lid right side up, you're not going to drill a hole in the middle. You're actually going to drill a hole just off to the side here, because this middle section becomes your knob. Biggest problem people have with knobs is they make them too small. Make sure you can get your fingers in here. The clay is going to shrink during the firing and drying stages, and so you want to make sure that it's plenty big enough. I've got fairly small hands, so a fairly small knob like this might be comfortable for me later on, might not be comfortable for people with bigger hands later on. So that's the knob. I'm going to try to leave that alone for the most part. And I'm going to work with this outside edge, or this kind of sideways section here, and that's going to become the wall of my lid. So I'm going to pull this up kind of like I would pull a bowl, except I've got quite a bit of clay down here and a little bit less in the middle. Now, it is very important that you do not pull straight out, even if you want your lid to be straight out at the end, because that tension of holding those walls straight out, they're going to start to sag on you. So if you pull them up, they're going to hold themselves up until you're ready to shape them. So when you are working with this, you need to know what size you're aiming for if you've done the pot first. Right now, this distance, the width of my rim right here, my lid right here, it's going to be a little bit wider when I shape it. Now, this kind of lid, exactly as it is now, trimmed to be a nice triangular shape, can fit into a pot that's got a triangular rim. That's reasonable, you can do that. You've got to get your angles to match, which is a little tricky, but if you get your angles to match, you can have a nice snug lid that fits into there. That's not what I'm going to do here. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull out this inside edge and make it a little bit more square, and then I'm going to create a bend. Oops, it's starting to stick. I'm going to create a bend in my rim here, and then what I'm looking to measure here is that the walls of the pot are going to sit right here, or else this is going to sit down into a gallery where the edge of the pot comes up like this, and so the outside edge of the pot is here, the gallery sits right here. And so depending which type of form I'm making, this is going to sit on or kind of into the pot. Now, if you've gotten to this part and you've got a little wobble in your rim, my rim is a little uneven, you can actually, it's kind of a funny cut, but you can cut it just like you would when you're cutting off the top of a bowl or something like that. You can cut off the edge here. Just keep your finger underneath to keep things steady. Cut straight down. And then just pull that off of here. Now, obviously, that can be used to clean up an edge. It can also be used if you've got your measurements off, if it's a little bit too wide and you need to get a little bit more narrow. And then use a sponge or a chamois to clean up that edge, make it nice and smooth. And then you can undercut, cut away a little bit of this extra clay away later. You are going to have to trim this in most cases. This particular piece, if the knob sits underneath this edge, you can just flip it upside down and trim it. If the knob is taller than this edge, you're going to need to use a chuck later on to trim with. Now, a slightly different variation of that type of lid is one that is flat. And so I'm going to open this one up here. I'm going to drill my knob shape, just like I did before. And I'm still going to pull these walls up at an angle. Do a little shaping on my rim here. Still going to pull these walls up at an angle, compress that rim, make sure it's nice and clean. Get my shape a little bit smaller than what I need it to be for the end result. And then for something like this, the last thing you're going to do is you're going to bring this down fairly flat. It's actually a little bit stronger if you can leave just a little bit of a curve in there. And then same kind of deal, you can cut a little bit of that clay off, or you can trim it off later on, and I'll just pull it off like that. And then you've got some more clay you can throw something else with.